Welcome back, everyone, to the Talk of the League podcast. It's been a few weeks, but I am back to talk different aspects of the Premier League. I'm looking forward to not talking as much about Man United with my two guests today. I'm joined by Chris from Leicester Till I Die TV, and I'm joined by Rich Story from Loaded HQ1 as well. How are you guys doing?
Brilliant. You're not going to talk Man United.
Talk a little bit Man United, but more so going to talk about Rich's team. Now, obviously, with these two guys here, especially the Newcastle fan being here, it's obvious what we're going to talk about. Newcastle are going to be the new big spenders in the Premier League probably over the next 10, 15 years, and there'll be millions of Newcastle fans all around the world, and then the generation later will want Newcastle always because they ruined their childhoods. Because that seems to be how it works for Man United. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Leicester, Newcastle, of course, being bought over by, is it Saudi? I don't actually know what it is. Saudi Public Investment Fund?
It's a consortium made up of 80% of the PIF, which is the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
10% PCP Capital Partners, which is Amanda Staveley's business.
Yep.
And also the final 10% by the Reuben brothers.
Yeah, Reuben is Amanda Staveley's husband, is that right?
No, it's me and Dad. Me and Dad's husband. The Reuben, but Jamie Reuben's on the board representing. He was originally, but it's his dad and his uncle who are property entrepreneurs. They've done a lot of renovation in Newcastle as well. So it's a very, very tactical consortium they've put together for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think by the long and short of it, and I think a lot of Newcastle fans know this, and they're owned by now a Saudi prince, it looks like. Saudi Prince bin, what's his name?
Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah, there you go, Mohammed bin Salman, which is probably where a lot of the money's coming from. There's nothing wrong with that. There's teams like that owned all over the world, and there's two teams like that in the Premier League that are owned by sort of, maybe not of that ilk, but they've got that sort of level of money. But Newcastle have sort of blown them out the water. So that's obviously what's happened. The reason I got Chris on is because there was a story last week or something like that talking about Brendan Rodgers. Obviously, he was under a bit of pressure. They dispatched Man United last weekend, took a lot of that pressure off of Brendan Rodgers. And I think there's a lot of Newcastle fans that are saying that Rodgers would be a great fit to come in and sort of fix the club and take over. So I want to get a bit of a more neutral perspective on the Newcastle side of things, and then obviously the managers, and I also want to see from the Newcastle side of things, a Newcastle fan, not only about the owners but potential players, the new manager, the outgoing manager, anything like that. So that's exactly what this show sort of is. So I want to come to you first of all, Rich. Obviously, in the last few days, this story's changing all the time, and obviously in the last few days, Steve Bruce has been sacked as Newcastle boss. Well, he left on neutral.
It was mutual consent, but we know he was a bit pushed.
Mutual consent with a £7 million payoff or something. Yeah,
mutual consent with a nice golden handshake.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he was gutted for about 15 seconds, and then he realised what he was actually going to be given. And then, and obviously it's his boyhood club. He's obviously a Man United legend. There's obviously a lot of you see a lot of the pundits around won't sort of criticise him. Things like Neville and Scholes and Ferdinand won't criticise Steve Bruce, and they were very, very slow to criticise Newcastle, even though by the long and the short of it, Steve Bruce wasn't winning games, and Newcastle fans, I think, quite rightly had a reason to not want Steve Bruce in charge, because right now my manager's not winning games, and I don't want him in. I'm not a fan. I don't want him in the job anymore because I don't think he can take my club forward. And I think that's what Newcastle fans wanted. From a Newcastle fan perspective, obviously you're in that bubble. What was the general feeling around Bruce beforehand and sort of now as well? What are your feelings towards him?
If I go back to when he actually was appointed, what a lot of people don't remember is there was about 11 or 12 candidates that we approached beforehand that all turned us down.
Yeah.
So we didn't have much to choose from, really. So, a lot of fans didn't want Steve Bruce, and we've always been honest about that. However, the majority of the fan base were willing to give him a chance. At the end of the day, he was a Newcastle fan.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's not his fault. He was 12th, choice or whatever it was. Yeah. But what we've got to do is we've got to get behind the manager and get behind the team. And that's what we did to start with.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, as they went into lockdown, there was a few performances were absolutely abysmal. We can start with the one when we played Brentford last season in the Carabao Cup in the quarter-final, where we basically didn't touch a glove on Brentford. And Brentford were a much changed side as well that game. Then there was also when we went to his old club, Sheffield United, in the January, where we looked. Yes, we got beat by 1-0 by a penalty, but we just looked awful that game as well. Ryan Fraser was sent off in the first half, but there was just no battle there either. And again, this season as well started awful as well. But even during the lockdown period, some of the comments he was saying about Newcastle fans, and that's why it started to turn on him in the media.
Yeah,
because you can't slag off the fans, the people that you're wanting to back your team and stuff like that. And yeah, we'll back the team as much as we can when we're in the ground, when the game's on. Mm-hmm. But that's the only time on social media, because we couldn't get to the stadium to let them know how we actually felt.
Yeah,
that was the only time we could actually put our points of view across to them about how we felt and stuff like that. And some people did take it too far. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. But the majority of the Newcastle fan base, it was polite. Do you know what I mean? It was we wanted them out because there was no identity on the pitch, no tactics on the pitch either. It seemed to be we would go into the game with a plan A. Plan A wasn't working. Then we didn't know. We tended to, if it wasn't going right in the first half, we'd wait until half time before things started to, we needed someone who could see what was going on straight away, react to it, possibly make a change, stuff like that. So sometimes we're waiting half a game before we even started. We turned up, sort of thing. But
sounds like all to be honest. That's actually
the thing is, one of the weirdest things is though. I was watching one of our brotherly podcasts where the lads from Loaded all started. And there was a good point made tonight that in his last 38 games as in charge of Newcastle in the Premier League, he's won 7 of them. So 7 of them out of 38. Bear in mind, 38 is a full season.
A full season, yeah.
So that's relegation form.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can understand why we're asking them to go. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, of course. And like you said with the social media thing, it's often the ones that are the most abhorrent that sort of come to the surface with social media. And that's sort of where maybe from Bruce's point of view, if everything was coming from social media and then all he was really seeing or hearing was the stuff that was reported that was horrible and vile and not constructive and not, as you say, most normal Newcastle fans that were really just upset that the club weren't going in the direction that they were, then that's maybe why it could seem misconstrued, because you're absolutely right. Like Newcastle fans, when they're in the stadium, it's not, very rarely is it the manager that sort of gets the abuse. It was Ashley. It was always Ashley. As long as I can remember watching football, it was never very rarely the play, because I remember a long time, like Newcastle have been pretty poor for a few seasons. And it was never the players.
14 in fact, Greg.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, you had a couple. You had a couple with Cisse and Dembaba and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had one. We had one decent season when Pardew took us to 5th. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, it was never the players that got hounded, because I think the Newcastle fans recognised the players were very limited. It was never really the coaching staff, because I think they recognised that they can't bring in the top manager because of the position that the club was in. And then it was always back to Ashley, because Ashley was always the one at fault. Chris, looking at a more neutral side of things, do you think it's fair to sack him, or do you think maybe that he should have been given the chance to see this out, maybe even till January? Because a new manager can't come in and do anything different until January, because he's got the same squad of players. So what do you think, Chris? Do you think he should?
I think a new manager can come in and do something different, because he can change the tactics, and he can. He's got a squad of players, and he can maybe pick players that weren't being picked by the previous manager. I think it's always hard for a fan of Club A to ever sort of be constructive about a manager at Club B, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to say, that we all criticise managers. It's what we do on these channels. But it's so easy to say that the abuse went too far. But I didn't see it all. I didn't read it all. Yeah. It's not my club. All I would say is that looking at Steve Bruce, he kept you sort of up for the last couple of seasons. Your stuff does 4-1 at the back end of last season, which still hurts. You can probably tell. But I think his position was just untenable. You certainly don't come out and call your fans. Fans can criticise. We pay our money, or we give our time up and buy the shirts and everything. So we're allowed to say if we're not happy about something.
Yeah,
I don't agree with booing or anything like that, but we're allowed to criticise. You don't get managers criticising the fans, though. He's paid enough money to be able to sit there and take it. And he must have been absolutely pooing his pants when the fans were allowed back into the ground.
Yeah.
I think his position had become untenable for me, looking at it. I don't think whoever came in and bought the club would have kept him. I think fair dues to the new owners. They let him have his 1,000th game, and I think that was decent of them, to be honest with you, because will he get another job now? I don't know. Football managers do when they've been sacked, don't they? It's the only business where you can do badly and walk into another job. He's talking about retirement. So I think it was nice that they let him have his 1,000th game. But yeah, I mean, he had to go. It's the next move that's going to be the interesting one.
I think just an interesting thing that you actually mentioned there, Chris, is what you've got to look at is, whoever comes in will get a new tune out of the players that Bruce perhaps couldn't get into. Mm. What a lot of people forget is that the majority, I would say about 75-80% of the current squad played under Rafa Benitez in the Championship and was there for the first couple of seasons when we came back up. And a lot of those players, people like Sean Longstaff, Fabian Schär, he was getting a tune out of them. So we feel as though we've digressed too much under Bruce. And we believe that a new coach would probably come in and stoke a few fires under a few of them as well. So I think that's what we're expecting anyway.
You always get a new manager bounce anyway, a little bit. Although you could say it was a getting rid of the old manager bounce more often than not. But I mean, we have to say, we had Demarai Gray, which we bought from Birmingham. We thought brilliant player, young lad. He was going to go, places. It just never worked out for him. He moved to Germany, then ended up back at Everton. He's under Rafa now, and he's playing probably some of the best football of his career because he happens to just click, and Rafa gets a tune out of him where 3 or 4 Leicester managers couldn't. And that's life, So, yes, a new manager can come in and do it. I pity the new manager. I really do, because it was a bit like for me, David Moyes taking over at Man United, following Sir Alex Ferguson. I think if you were a manager, you're looking and thinking, "Ooh, still a bit of a hot potato here," because if I come in, am I short term just to sort of take? Because you've got sensible owners. Let's be honest; they are very, very sensible. They're not going to rush into anything. They're not saying you're going to be winning the Premier League next season. It's going to be done on, sensibly. So I think if I was a manager, I was going to be the next manager, if you like, the manager that follows this one. But I think this one could end up being a short-term manager just to start to turn things around. And then in a few years' time, when you're ready to really push on, that's when you get the big manager in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that leads us brilliantly on to sort of the next bit I want to talk about. Now, in the last sort of 24, 48 hours, it's been rumoured that Paulo Fonseca is the front runner. It looks like he's going to be the one to take over. I thought it would be someone like an Eddie Howe, or possibly even last week I thought Brendan Rodgers was going to take over. In terms of Fonseca coming in, I think it makes sense. He was obviously so close to coming in at Spurs last season. He clearly wants to try the Premier League, but that to me doesn't strike as someone that doesn't strike me as a short-term appointment. That strikes me as a big name that I don't know if he's cut out to come in and try and save a team from relegation, because that's got to be the first manager's job, right? When they come in, like, you've got a squad there that's not, I don't think, great. I think that squad is one of the worst in the league. And they're in a position that represents how they've been playing. So you're not only relying on this manager to come in and probably spend some money and bleed his own system with these new players. He's in a new club in a new country, in a new league, and then they're right at the bottom as well. So I want to get your opinion, Rich, in terms of the managers that's been rumoured, or whether it's Fonseca or whatever. It looks like every manager really has been linked. Who would you have liked to see come in? And if it is Fonseca, do you think that's a sensible one, or do you think they should have gone more short-term, keep us up, and build next year?
Do you know what? In the space of the 2 weeks since the takeover gone through, I think we've done a show on this and touched on it every single time for about 7 or 8 times in 2 weeks. It changes. We can say something one day, and the next day we've had a chance to reflect on what we've said and other people's points of view and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, last week, and obviously I don't know why you got Chris out tonight because Brendan Rodgers was, he was rumoured last week. He was very, very short odds. He was favoured for the job and stuff. And I think in an ideal world, he is the sort of perfect candidate we would like. He's got the experience of a Premier League coach. He's won things up in, it's first at Celtic, and then he's also done fantastic with Leicester the last couple of years. Got their first couple of trophies at their FA Cup, and then the Charity Shield in the summer as well. He's had experience working as a coach at Chelsea, also building up squads at like Reading and Swansea and stuff like that. So he's probably the perfect all-around coach that you would want in an ideal world. If he was free or possibly still at Celtic, he's probably where you want to go to. But yes, okay, everyone keeps reminding us we've got endless amount of money. We could go however we want to. That's not always the be-all and end-all sort of thing as well. The end of the manager might not want to come, or we might not want to rock the boat sort of thing. So you start to look at similar English sort of managers who know the league. And that was one of the reasons why people like Eddie Howe and Chris Wilder got, banded around to start with. Both know the league, both have built up teams from lower divisions and worked their way up, and consolidated, especially with Eddie Howe, consolidating the Premier League for a certain amount of years before they unfortunately got relegated. After he was looked at, with people like Arsenal, Tottenham were banded about taking him on and taking that next step with a bigger club. And unfortunately, during obviously when we went to lockdown and Project Restart and stuff, and a few injuries and a couple of people who obviously are on Newcastle's books now refused to play for him and stuff like that. And you can't look at those type of things and think, when you're coaching set teams, you don't expect that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's you just got to get the cards, whatever you dealt with, and you've got to play with those cards, sort of thing. So I think he was a little bit hard done by on that, and then obviously the way he went out. And I think the one shock for Eddie Howe is he hasn't had a job since. We know he was linked with Celtic in the summer, and then he turned it down at the last minute.
Yeah, they wouldn't with his staff or something.
Yeah, I think we think there's a bit of a rumour going on as well, saying he didn't want to move away that far from the south coast as well. There's a lot of rumours about that.
It's a long way.
He's really settled down there as well. The reason why Eddie Howe, a lot of people have seen him as a good fit is because we've probably got half the playing staff on our playing staff now with him as well. Do you know what I mean? We've got Matt Ritchie, Ryan Fraser, Callum Wilson. We've also got Graham Jones as well, who's at Bournemouth as well. So there's a good connection there. And those players will know what to like to work for them. They can tell you the players what they expect and stuff like that. So, that if you want to go for that sort of appointment, that's great. The only problem with I think with someone like Wilder or Eddie Howe, you're right, it's a short-term appointment. I think, as we mentioned on our show the other night, he would come in, and a lot of English players, which we probably need in the January transfer window, people like James Tarkowski. You look at Jesse look at Jesse Lingard. He's gone back and hardly getting a game we did at West Ham. These sort of players this is where realistically you should be looking at January, and Howe would be good on that benefit because they know Howe as well and they know what he's capable of and they've seen what he's been able to do. Yeah. But if he then keeps us up, and then that's when you can really start to get hold of the money and see where you want to take the club to the next level. Is Eddie Howe the manager who can take the club to the next level of the transfer window? Not realistically, it's not.
I don't know what the next level is for that Newcastle side though. Like the next level isn't going to be 6 because that's not realistic. Like next season has to be comfortable, not in a relegation battle at any point. Like it's got to be mid-table surely or top half. Like it can't be. It's going to be a case unless they're going to that's another thing. Like we don't know whether they're going to be a Chelsea or a City and spend hundreds of millions really quickly and try and get there really, or whether it's going to be more natural like a Leicester, like an Everton, where the money's going to be invested all round and it's going to be improving the city, improving the training ground, having a women's team.
This is the one thing that Newcastle, has got. There's a lot of things going to be going on, not just on the playing staff with it, but within infrastructure in the city as well. Yeah, our training grounds. I've seen that. Sunderland in League One, their training grounds are better standard than ours is. You see all these saunas and stuff like that at other places. You want to cool down and have an ice bath at Newcastle, you get a paddling pool out of the ice bin. That's literally how it is. And with this, I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures on social media, they have a look for them. Yeah, in the paddling pool with ice in the paddling pool or a wheelie bin with ice in. Seriously, that was. I can tell you a few stories because I know there's a few people who do who are friends of mine who do repairs and stuff at the stadium and also at the training ground. And they had to go into the training ground. All 20 showers weren't working, but Mike Ashley would only pay to have 10 repaired out of 20.
Not even 11?
No, not even 11. So, you know what I mean? It bamboozles you. You know what I mean? Little things like this where he's penny pinching everywhere. So there's a lot of things going on as well. But also there's the good thing about having the Rubens on board and the consultant, they want to invest in the city and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. So it's a lot of people want to have a good investment in the squad straight away. There will be, but it depends on what level it's going to be. Regards to immediate or long term, Newcastle do off what the court even instigate. They wanted to bring a sporting director or a director of football in. Now, that was probably when they first came in, that was the priority position, because then obviously you need a coach that's going to be able to have chemistry with that director of football and obviously work together. But then obviously we played Spurs on Sunday, and it was clear to see that the way the playing staff is, they're the people who are going to get us out of this mess. So the coach is the person we need to replace first.
You were good for 3 minutes. I thought for 3 minutes you were really good on Sunday, and then it all fell apart. Like the goal celebrated, and then you decided not to mark Harry Kane.
The first 90 minutes up until the goal was fantastic. The best Sunday one in a long time. The 90 minutes after that, we'll just not talk about that. But no, I think it was quite clear that's what the head coach is the most important role. But it's like, you're right, do you go for the short term, medium? I think the more and more I've read about Paulo Fonseca over the last 48 hours, since it was quite clear he was the man that looks like they're going to be bringing in, he's a very, very good coach. I do grassroots coaching myself and stuff like that, and I like to look at what the coaches do, because you can pick up different things and what might work and stuff like that, and just fresh ideas. It's always a good idea to see other things. And some of the stuff he sees is fantastic. And Pep came out in the press the other day, said that he's a fantastic coach, Paulo Fonseca. He said when the scouting team for Man City went over to them in I think it was the 2018 season when they played Shakhtar in the Champions League, and the scouting team came back and just went, "Wow, they are some team," and that was Shakhtar. They did them over in, I think it was in one of the games. I don't know if that was at Manchester or that was in Shakhtar, but Shakhtar did actually beat them that season on one of the legs. So, but that one, it depends on who they bring. There's a rumor going around that it's Fonseca and they're bringing the director of football who's going to work as well, and they reckon that the name going around is Luis Campos.
Oh wow!
If both Portuguese, so they're probably similar sort of philosophy and how they want to play the game. So if
Luis Campos.
Yeah, he's got a fantastic reputation, Luis Campos. But if it's true that those are the two names that come in, then fantastic. The only thing is that you're still on that is they're going to have a fantastic knowledge of the foreign market, but are those players going to know how it is to play the relegation scrap in the Premier League? These are the two pros and cons of having a short-term manager then you can replace in the summer, or do you have a short to medium term who can then kick on straight away and build on what was started already. So that's where we're at.
No, that's fair. Chris, from your sort of perspective, obviously, I think last week it definitely looked like Rodgers was the favourite, and it looked like that if Leicester's poor form, and not only the poor form, like the performances weren't Leicester like really this season up until sort of last week, especially in that final hour. Like we discussed just before the game, we thought Man United were okay for the first sort of half hour, and then
up until that,
So Man United were really good for half an hour, and then Tielemans scored that goal, and then suddenly everything went to pot. So, were you surprised to see Rodgers' name linked? What was your overall reaction?
No, we're Leicester. We're not surprised to see any manager we have or any player we have linked with other clubs. Half our team was being linked to Man United by fans and everything the day after the takeover. I think on the day of the takeover, I was watching one chat and somebody said, right, let's go and get Jamie Vardy. I mean, we're that sort of club. Only today, Tielemans has been linked with Man United. Fofana's been linked with Man. It goes with the territory. And it's funny because there's always, apart from Newcastle, there's always a club that's bigger out there. We've got money. We're not a poor club. And compared to, other teams like maybe West Broms and Oldhams and teams like that will look at us and think we're really rich. We look at Man City, Man United, think they're really rich. And they'll look at Madrid's and the Barcelonas and they'll lose players to them. And now, and now Newcastle, yeah. And I wasn't surprised that he got linked. We've got 24-hour rolling sports news. We've got numerous websites and papers and what have you to fill. So it's all talk. But he came out, and it was nice to see that Rodgers came out and said, "Look, I'm happy, and I don't want to go." Because, like I said, I think whoever goes there, the weight of expectations on his shoulder will be enormous, and I think you've got to go. You're in a relegation battle, and like you said, the problem is you have still got the same players, so you're not suddenly going to end up getting into the sort of Europa League or Champions League this season. So I think an English manager going in short term, steady the ship, knows the division. I mean, I live in Bournemouth. And I know Eddie Howe. I don't know Eddie Howe, but I know his sort of philosophy. When I came down here, they were minus 20-odd points in the fourth tier and looked like they were going out. And this same guy took them up to the Premier League. It was an amazing story. And I think he could probably keep you up. The problem is he doesn't want to move away from this part of the country. He went to Burnley for a little bit, but then came back down again because he wants his family's down here and he's very much a family man. But like you said, Rich, you've got. I mean, look at Watford. I mean, they're not even in a relegation battle yet, but they've sacked the manager and brought in Ranieri. He's not going to keep them up. He couldn't keep Fulham up because the sort of manager Ranieri is, he's not used to a relegation battle. You'd have to even question if you brought Jose in at the moment. He's not used to relegation battles. He does, it's a different sort of game. So I think somebody like an Eddie Howe or somebody like that, or you might get Ollie by the end of the season if he doesn't do anything at Man United.
Jesus, you don't want tactics. Should be fair.
No, you can keep Ollie.
But no, I think to steady the ship, like you say, and you appear to have really sensible owners that are going to buy into the area, like our owners, basically. And you one thing with Ashley is he's left you in a position where you don't have to worry too much about FFP. But I do wonder if you bring a foreign coach in. I just hope the fans accept the reality of it. You are now, like I say, we didn't have the reality of becoming the richest club in the world, and that's a hell of a lot to take on board. And I just hope the fans will give the owners the time to do what they're going to do. And I wish you all the best. And, just go and kick, no disrespect, Greg, kick the arses of Sky's favourite 6 clubs.
To be fair, it's one of the things that I know for hands down, we will give this consortium time because they've the first time that Amanda and me had appeared in the ground was, I think it was 2017, 2018 against Liverpool, and she has set her heart on Newcastle since that day. So she was a fan before, and she's stuck with it. She's done everything she possibly could to try and buy this club. So she's always wanted us from that moment. So we got behind the consortium, and obviously with all the legal things coming on, and the fans got involved. One of our good friends obviously wrote the letter that got the cat case on board and stuff like that. So, 95% of the Newcastle population that were polled by the NUST Newcastle Trust wanted this takeover by this consortium. But to be fair, the majority of Newcastle fans, all they wanted really was a takeover and a club to be run like Leicester. Leicester is
something like that.
Yeah, because we've seen, we see how the Leicester fans are towards the owners. They worship them. Do you know what I mean? It's like
just a bit.
Yeah, but that's how we wanted our club to be run. It's a good family club. the way that they've done to the area as well. They've got a fantastic, they've invested in the training ground, the local area as well. That's what we've always wanted. But at the same time, we want to turn up on a Saturday or a Sunday, whatever it is. We want to feel like we can give it any team a go. We don't want to go out and necessarily. We're not expecting to win the league or get into Champions League like a lot of other pundits and media outlets say. We just want to turn up and like give a team a go. If we go out and like lose 3-2, say if we lost like obviously 3-2 on Sunday to Spurs, but if we lost and really given it a go, it would have been a different atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? We could see change because bear in mind our squad isn't great.
No.
So if we had gone and lost 3-2 on that sort of basis, we would have been, there'd be more of a pleasant atmosphere around. Would have been more positive. Bruce might have got a little bit more stay of execution. We don't know because there'd been a turning for, there'd been the players a bit of a kick up the arse sort of thing and a reaction to it. But because of how bad that performance was, and that's what we've pretty much been watching really for 14 years, you turn up on a Saturday and it's like, are we getting anything today? I don't know. It's for some fans it's become like a routine to go. They don't want to go. It's been like a routine to go.
I used to have a season ticket for Leicester City. I mean, I live in Bournemouth, but I used to have a season ticket. I was like nearly an 7.5 hour, 8 hour return journey. When we played Bournemouth, it was great. It was like a home game for me. I didn't want them to get relegated. But in that first season back up, the Great Escape, what we call the Great Escape season, we were bottom of the league longer than any team that's ever stayed up. And we would drive that distance every week or every home game to watch them because they were putting in the performances. We weren't getting stuffed 3-4, 5-0. It was 1-0, 2-1s. But you could see that the players were really, really trying. And that's why Pearson was stuck with, because yes, we were bottom, but the players were giving it all. And at the end of the day, sometimes, as much as you give you all, it's just not quite good enough. Nobody was more surprised than us when we turned it round. But if they do that, I just want to say that when we brought Nigel Pearson in, we were in League One. We just got relegated. Southampton had stayed up at our expense. Southampton then sacked Pearson. We got him in, and he took us straight back up. And what he did was, his strategy was, I'm not going to be in this league long, so the players that I'm going to buy to get out of this league are going to be short-term buys or loans. There's very few long-term purchases that he made. And so that when we came straight back up after one season, a lot of the players were sort of let go, if you like, because they were loan players. And then he bought more players in that were then more championship quality.
I do think that's where Newcastle could go really well, like be really clever in the January window. I think there's so many good players, or maybe not. Decent Premier League players that aren't playing because there's these squads that are so filled with talent. Like for Man United, I think you'd easily get Donny van de Beek. I genuinely think you would.
Yeah.
And if it was up to me, you could pay £4 in a Mars bar and you get Martial as well, because I don't think he's worth anything. So
do you know what? I wouldn't have Martial. I really wouldn't.
He doesn't bring anything. Like he might score the odd goal, but he's actually stinking. Like he doesn't try. He doesn't work hard. Like he won't. I feel like he'll buy into a system, but he'll buy into a system where he's the main man. Like he bought into under Jose at points because he was the one playing through the middle. And then since he's been moved out on the left, he's just not interested. It's really strange.
That's the sort of players actually we wouldn't need in a relegation. But if he's not good, hasn't got that, we wouldn't want that. We can't.
Players like Jesse Lingard and like Jesse Lingard. I reckon you could maybe get Callum Hudson-Odoi on loan. Don't know. It depends what Chelsea want to do.
You know what? We actually had a conversation. I actually wrote a book. I'm got over there on a desk, but like one of the names I was like fantastic Premier League appearances. Really experienced at Man United. His contract's up at the end of the season. And I just thought, you know what? He could probably give you 18 months tops. And that would be like Juan Mata. I think Juan Mata would be, his experience. Yeah, he's still a quality player. He could, one of the things we're going to need is, yes, we will be able to score goals, but he's cool in that situation as well. He's really good on the ball. He's a good set piece taker. Now, our set pieces like corners and stuff are absolutely abysmal. We never beat the first man. So
welcome to our world.
You got Ryan Fraser and start whipping them in.
So this is where we were thinking. We were like, I went and did some research. Who's got players kind of like Tarkovsky? I think a lot of people have been mentioning him. He's out with contract in the summer.
He'd be a great signing. You could probably get him for 5 or 6 million.
Yeah, we would have loved that Tarkovsky.
5 or 6 million, like when he's because West, like Burnley, I know they've got owners now with money, but if a player's going to run down his contract and it's like, right, well, you're going to get 6 million for him now or nothing in 6 months.
Well, that's what I wrote down. What our realistic bid, and I turned down something like a 10 million bid would probably get you Tarkovsky in January
comfortably. Yeah.
So and 10 million going on, the fact that the FIFA FFP, that's nothing in that market. 10 million. I think Man United are really good with some of the players. They might even let Mata go free because of how long he's been a servant. He's only got 6 months left of his contract. So, another one England nationally played abroad who I think would be a fantastic addition. We know he wants to come back is Kieran Trippier. I think that would be someone who he knows the league really well. Right back situations, a really bad situation for us. It's thinking outside the box players who we could bring in. Not necessarily going along saying there's 60 million, there's whatever. Yeah. It's shopping around and being clever.
Yeah, it's not the Mbappe Haalands. It's what Leicester do so well. It's finding these players that, like, that's one thing. I think as Man United fans, like, we talk about all the time on the channel that we wish we had not necessarily the owners that Leicester do, because Man United obviously have money. They spend money. It's what happens. It's
debt as well. Let's not forget.
Absolutely, there's lots of debt, but Man United can't say that we don't spend money because of our debt. We never do, and that's why a lot of rival fans say, how can you complain about the Glazers when you spend all the money? And it's a lot of other things that they do to the club and not invest in things like repairing the ground and letting things go to waste and stuff. But we always say that one recruiting team we would like to have is Leicester, because it seems to be stats driven, it seems to be numbers driven, it seems to be these little pickups. Like, I remember saying all last season that after the French TV deal collapsed, that there'd be a lot of top talent coming out of France. And that's exactly what happened. And I never remember the name of the midfielder that Leicester signed in the summer, the French one, Chris?
Soumare.
Yeah, Soumare, who looked brilliant last year. And Leicester got him for an absolute snap.
He was brilliant last night. He was brilliant on Wednesday night.
On Wednesday, yeah.
He was someone Newcastle looked at, I think, was 12 months before. Yeah, we really, really rated him, but he was like, he was one of those where it's like, do I go to someone in, I think it was the January window, and we were like, tipping over the edge of the relegation zone. You can see, is it the sort of person who's like, do I want to go in for a relegation fight? Do I risk of getting relegated? And obviously the summer came in, we thought we might go back into the summer, but as soon as Leicester came in, we knew we weren't going to get him. As soon as Leicester came in.
He's so good, and it was a smart buy. It wasn't like, I think Man United are so, and I'm going to use Man United as the example I know, but they're so keen to get the big name. You sort of saw it this summer as well, but we were always going to get Sancho. Varane was available, and we were never letting Ronaldo go to Man City. So you can sort of let off this season. But in terms of getting a defensive mid, like every defensive mid that Man United seem to be linked to is like, oh, it has to be Rice, and it has to be a 70, 80 million pound midfielder. I was like, no, it doesn't.
Indeed.
It doesn't have to be that.
Did you watch my blog earlier? Because I was saying I had a bit of a mini rant because of clubs that, everybody says, oh, we looked at that player. Well, why the hell didn't you go and buy them then? Because the reason
we didn't have the money.
Well, you didn't have the money. No, well, you have now. Let's be honest. You didn't then. But Man United, you could have got Maguire for
50 million the year before.
Thanks very much. You're not having the money back. Don't care if you've got the receipt or not. But you could have got him a lot cheaper because you were looking at him. But you won't take a chance on these players that are out there because your scouting system, I don't know what it is, or whether it's just the owners have got to have the big names that come in.
It's our scouting system. It's the fact that Woodward and David Gilroy. There's a story that a football agent had to phone Patrice Evra, who's not related to the club, he's just a club legend, had to phone Patrice Evra to tell David Gill, who was the head of our transfers at the time, to pick up his phone because he wouldn't answer his phone for a move. Like, it's things like that, and it's just so silly. And
this Fofana rumor that's come out today, apparently you've been linked with him before. I don't know whether you've looked at him and you've moved, but now you're after him because we took the chance. He's been absolutely brilliant, and you don't get him for less than 100 million if you paid 80 for Maguire.
That's true.
Yet you could have had him for 30 million, which is what we paid. So we don't have to sell players, but you keep coming and throwing money at us.
That's true.
I think the best. We'll come on to this in a second when you're asking about is the Newcastle a good thing for the Premier League?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the best thing that genuinely, I think the best way that Newcastle could buy players would be go to Leicester, ask them how much they want for players, put in bids that are under that, and keep slowly increasing it. Knowing Leicester won't accept, wait 2 or 3 weeks for who Leicester are linked with, and then go and buy them. And that would be the best way to go. That would 100% be the best way, because if Leicester are going to replace the player that they have with someone else, go and get them. It'll be cheaper.
Funny thing is, West Ham tried that and it didn't work for them.
Yeah,
I was chosen us over West Ham.
I was doing some research, Greg, on Fonseca today, and there was an interesting article where they talked about Fred, and I don't know whether you actually know the story or not.
I like Fred, but he's so annoying.
I don't know whether you heard the story. And what actually happened was, Shakhtar were after him for 30 million, and that's how much they when everyone was interested, and when he was at Shakhtar. And then, of course, all of a sudden they got a bid to 60 million for him. And then they were like, Fonseca actually says, we were like laughing. We got the champagne bottles were open. They got double what they wanted. And then Fonseca actually turned around and says, no, I'll tell you what, see if we can get 64 for him instead. And of course, they went back to it and he's paid it.
I just hate it so much. It's just so backwards. Like it's like Everton energy. That reminds me of like Everton in our transfer market really confused me, because I imagine they weren't quoted like 30 million for Alex Iwobi. Mine like 15, like here's 30. Like that's just ridiculous. But yeah, I'm really interested, Rich. What sort of player, other than sort of James Tarkowski and like we mentioned, players like Donny van de Beek, potentially Mata, is there anyone else in and around the league that you think that Newcastle should definitely be targeting to be like, come and help us, save us, like get a lot of money while you do it, but like there's still a lot of attractions to playing for Newcastle. You hear a lot of ex-players talk about how like it's a great city. It's always described as like a goldfish bowl type of city. It's quite clear that Alan St-Maximin is enjoying his time there. I think should you go down, he's probably a player you will lose.
Yeah.
Because he's a great player. But now it's no longer looking like, oh, we need to keep on to him. But it's like, well, we can build a squad around him. So what sort of players? Because there's so much deadwood in that squad. Like your whole squad is pretty much, they've got a player of deadwood in sort of every position. So
yeah,
don't you?
Well, I've got to be honest. Man United is full of deadwood as well, but ours plays every week.
I think if you're realistic, we don't need a goalkeeper. Dubravka's been fantastic since we bought Dubravka. Yeah. And we could probably get another 3 to 4 years out of him at a push. That's not a position that is a necessity. Yes, we probably need a better backup eventually. But we don't need to look at that department as yet. A lot of Newcastle fans still believe that Freddie Woodman will develop. He just hasn't developed at the same rate as people like Aaron Ramsden and Sam Johnston, who are similar age goalies. And that's been our fault. We haven't done his loan career very well. But no, he's back at Newcastle. We've actually got 4 goalkeepers in our 25-man squad at the minute, which is exactly. We've got 4. We had. Obviously, Dubravka got injured playing in the Euros, and he had an operation and got a infection in his foot. So he's literally just returned to training. There's a chance he might play tomorrow, but if not, he's looking for Chelsea. So Darlow came in, and then Darlow got COVID and was like really bad. So we only had Wooden as our only, and Mark Gillespie as our 2 goalkeepers. But the problem was because Darlow was coming back in, and when he was there about coming back in. For some reason, Bruce turned around and said, "Oh no, but we can't use him. I'll have to put Gillespie in as well, just in case." And we're all screaming, "What about the under-23 goalie? You don't need to register him. It's like he's only going to warm the bench until Darlow comes back." But no, that was it basically. So, Dubravka, I don't think we need to replace him. The whole back line, this is the area that
so that your eyes just drain.
Yeah.
God, think about that.
You've got to think that the majority of that defence played in the Championship 3 years ago when we got promoted. So, well, longer than that now, but yeah, they were the Championship team when we got promoted. So, I'd like to think that we can get whoever the new coach can get a tune out of Jamal Lewis. He's just not been played for, so I don't understand. I don't know why Bruce hasn't fancied him, or I don't know. But at the end of the day, he's got to be a good player, because at the end of the day, Jurgen Klopp wouldn't have been interested if he wasn't a good player.
Yeah,
that's how a lot of the Newcastle fans see it. So we'll reserve reservation on him and judgment and stuff until we see something down the line. Right back, we've got Manquillo and Kraft. That's an area that drastically needs work doing. Centre back, Lascelles, he's the club captain, but as Martin, who was meant to be on tonight, he turns around and he always says, "Not my captain." He's just, you know what I mean? It's one of those. He didn't do too bad under Rafa when we played three at the back. Yeah. We had Florian Lejeune, who was probably the best centre back at the club, but for some reason Bruce didn't fancy him and then sold him. Loaned him out last year to Alaves, and he went back on a permanent deal at Alaves in the summer. And we had Shaw on the right, two fantastic ball-playing centre-halves, could carry the ball out. And Lascelles was that traditional centre-half who put a head on it, played it, no nonsense, and it worked. Yeah. But when the player fought at the back, it just doesn't work. Kieran Clark, championship player at the best. Legs have gone.
He's rigid, isn't he? He just doesn't move. He gets the ball and just freezes.
Yeah. It was Federico Fernandez, who's probably been our most consistent over the last 18 months. And he's reliable. You know what you get from him, sort of thing. But it's always been who's part of him. I've always liked Fabian Schär, but he doesn't do well in a four for some reason. At the end of the day, you don't play God knows how many times for Switzerland and be the top goal scorer from a defender in the World Cup. Yeah, if you're not a good defender. Yeah, he's a good player, but there's a lot of the Newcastle fan base are split on him. You look at Paul Dummett. He's a very he's a Newcastle lad. Yeah, he's still genuinely. He's still here. But do you know what? A lot of Newcastle fans would either have him as a centre back or left back, because when he's fit, he's a local lad, and you know what you get. He's solid. He's not
run through walls, but he'll run through walls if he's a local guy, wouldn't he? He's not gonna. Yeah. He'll give you 110%, and
he always does. Like one of the games we had last year when we played Southampton at home, and we went down to 9 men, and he came on for it was his first game back after injury. We were already down to 10 men, and he came on, and literally he played as a centre half in that game, and he literally just everything that was put in the box, he headed clean. It was an absolute rock that day. And then Shaw went off injured because we'd used all our subs, and we ended up playing with 9 men. We still hung on to win 3-2. But it was one of Dummett's best performances. And then he finished well the season. Now scored a good goal at Leicester, I believe, actually, when we decided to turn up when we went down the King Power that day. I think that's probably one of our best performances.
We felt sorry for you.
No, but to be fair, that's probably one of the only games last year where we played well. That was a good performance. I know we tied at the end and we were hanging on the last 10 minutes, and when they got the 2 goals back, and we were starting to, do we need to change our pants here type of thing?
Yeah.
But the end, I would say, go back the team that scored, that whole back line really needs work, full stop.
Yeah, in the midfield. In an ideal world, you'd have one of each. In like the next probably 18 months, 2 years, you'd have at least one of each in every position brought in.
Yeah. I think the centre back. I would say the position that we really need to address is we need a centre back, at least one, a full back. We need a defensive holding midfielder who can break play up.
Join the club.
Yeah, the only player realistic player that we've got. Sorry.
Chowdhury, you were linked with him before, but I suppose he's not good enough. I
don't think he'll be on the radar anymore. No. In an ideal world, who would I like to go for that? Me and Peter, who actually is Newcastle, but lives in Leicester, funnily enough, has got a lot of Leicester friends on our channel. We both love Calvin Phillips, and that's probably the person that we would like to, because he's still at that age where he can still build. He can be part of the team and build a spine through the team. Mm-hmm. He's now into his second year in the Premier League. He's now got international experience because he had a fantastic Euros. I think it'd be a fantastic addition. And I think he'd probably be realistically looking at 40, 50 million for Calvin Phillips. I think that's a realistic figure on that sort of thing. But he's the sort of player we need a ball winner. That my favourite defensive player, midfielder of all time is actually Kante. I just think he's fantastic.
He's good, isn't he? Yeah.
But he was, Chris obviously had the privilege of having in their title-winning team, and unfortunately couldn't hold on. But he's some player. I think Klopp actually said it's one of the players he would love to have signed. And that's understandable. Creative-wise, we've got Wilson, but the problem is with Wilson is if he's injured, we've got no one to replace him.
You've got Joe in him.
Who? Really? Come on, be fair.
I saw a thing the other day. It was like Joe will really miss Steve Bruce because he misses fucking everything.
He's like, to be fair, it's no. Do you know what? A lot of Newcastle fans, we know he's been no good so far.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of Newcastle. As I mentioned before, Fabian Schär, Sean Longstaff have regressed so much under the Sean Longstaff was linked to Man United when Rafa Benitez was there. There was a rumour of a 30 million bid coming in.
Yeah,
but now a lot of people wouldn't touch Sean Longstaff with a barge pole.
No.
So
one scheme against United, and then was like,
you start to think would a better coach be able to get something out of him? And we would Newcastle fans would love him to succeed. At the end of the day, it's our club record. It's not his fault that Mike actually decided to make one huge splash on completely the wrong player. He bought 40 million to be this legendary number 9 replacement went for you, and he's not even a striker. He's more of a wide man. Yeah, he's so on that one. But I think Alan Saint-Maximin will be he'll be there for a while. Number two, Ryan Fraser, he hasn't been involved this season. I still think Ryan Fraser is a fantastic player, so I would like to get him involved. He's got a chemistry with Callum Wilson from his Bournemouth days. During that season when they came up, they had the joint assist in Premier League history, along with I think it was. So there's that chemistry there, but the problem is that whenever they were playing, they were never on the pitch at the same time. It was just stupid. So we still think that we've always said that our probably best formation is 4-2-3-1, and have Saint-Maximin either in the number 10 role or one of the flanks, have Fraser on the other. And then you've got people like Joe Willock, who came in the end of last season. Yeah, he probably needs to be a bit more of an advanced player. Who I think he'd be a good squad player going forward under the new consortium. He was under Ashley. I think he was a player that you can. You'd have built the team around him if the old regime had stayed. I think he'd become a squad player under this one. Obviously, you start to bring the recruitment in, but we desperately just centre forward as well. In case Wilson, or to play alongside Wilson if you want to play 2 up top as well.
No, that makes sense. And it must be quite nice to be, obviously, I bet if someone said to you 18 months ago you'll be signing someone like Joe Willock for whatever you signed him for to be a squad player, that's massive, really, in terms of how far Newcastle have come. It looked like you were sort of just going for loan signings and stuff come the end of the last summer window. So you're obviously taking quite a big jump. And I do think there are, like you said, James Tarkowski would be a great signing. I think you probably could get Jesse Lingard. And there should be enough talent out there and enough people willing to give it a go for 6 months to the end of the season on loan or cheap deals and stuff to sort
I think you'll find a lot of, if there's a lot who aren't on site, like Tarkowski in his last 6 months, if there's anybody else, I think you'll get a lot of loan to buys options, like loan till the end of the season with the option to buy. I think that's what the sort of deals Newcastle will look at this season. And then when this new season comes along in the summer, if we're still in the Premier League, I think that's when you'll really see the new consortium putting a stamp on what their vision is for the team going forward.
Yeah, Chris, what were you going to say?
I think now that you've got all this money, Rich, would you do us a favour and take Perez back, please?
I dislike watching him as a player. I don't know what he does. I actually don't know what he does to be like in that team all the time, because he's not like an elite creator. He doesn't carry the ball. He's not a great finisher. I don't know.
I can remember when we bought him, I was like, wow, this, he had £30 million get out clause in his contract. We paid the 30 million and got him. He was completely left field. Nobody was expecting it at all. And Rodgers said he liked him because he was like his first line of defence. Defending from up front. I think I was speaking to a guy from The Athletic on one of my shows a while ago, and I think he summed it up. And he said Perez probably isn't as bad as the fans think he is, but he's not as good as Rodgers thinks he is.
Yeah.
He occasionally, play Southampton, he'll get a couple of goals. Yeah, he always does. And he'll turn up occasionally, like Man United. He didn't play that bad in that game, in fairness, but then none of the players did.
Yeah.
But I just, there was the arguments that, he was played out on the right and he wasn't a right-sided player. He was more central. But when he got the chance to be the central, he was still just as crap, to be honest with you. Please, we're not asking for much money. We paid you 30. We'll take $1 million just to it's pocket change for you now. Please, cover the taxi fare, wouldn't it, please?
I like that. Now, obviously, just to round up the show, the big thing about the takeover, the first question asked, and obviously there's rumours that the Big Six are very unhappy with this. I wonder why that would be. And sort of they're very unhappy, and it's all about ethics and everything like that now. Is this takeover sort of good for the league? Now, I, for one, don't believe you get to have that sort of wealth, any sort of wealth like Abramovich or Sheikh or the Glazers, without having some dodgy sort of past. And all money is dirty money, really. That level of money has come from things that maybe weren't quite legal. So, and as far as I'm concerned, I would much rather see this sort of investment into a team in the league that I enjoy watching and what I think is the best league in the world than I'm going to put it into like a second-rate Spanish side or a French side, because they're not going to, it doesn't matter, because if it wasn't this consortium, it'd be another consortium buying another team or another consortium buying, like, they're not going to get rid of money in football now. They've jumped the shark on that now. There's after Abramovich, really, and that sort of set the precedent that this is the level of money you need to compete in the Premier League. And it's doable if you're willing to sort of put that money in. And I just want to get your guys' opinion. Obviously, Rich, you'll have a different opinion, but do you believe this is a good thing for the league? I think it's great. Like, I'm all for another big team. I'm all for the best players coming to play. And if Newcastle can stay in the league for 6, 7, 8 years, imagine the level of team they're going to have. Imagine the level of players are going to be watching week in, week out in the Premier League. That's where I see it. I would much rather see these teams be in this league, because if the Premier League didn't accept them, La Liga would accept them, or Serie A would accept. They would have bought another team. It's not like they're ever going to kick the money out of football, and it's not like you can turn them the next day and go, right, we're just going to wipe the slate of all money and all clubs are fan-owned, because that's not how football works either. So what's your opinion, Rich? Do you think it's a good thing for the league, or do you think maybe there need to be wary about this sort of level of investment?
It's a difficult one, because obviously there's a lot of, different views on it, full stop.
Yeah.
From the football side of things, I think it's good to have this sort of investment. Not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to have the wealth that we've got. Do you know what I mean? Even if we had the Reuben brothers take us over, that they would have still made us the second richest club in the Premier League, because their wealth, I think, is only just behind Sheikh Mansour. So, on that sort of thing, it's like, with what they've actually promised to do, not just for the club but for the area as well, the redevelopment and stuff like that. That sort of investment doesn't come along every day, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted this consortium, because it wasn't just about the football club; it was about the area in general. People who live in the north, you'll know that we do tend to get the leftovers from whatever the down like London and stuff don't want and stuff like that, and we do tend to get left out on
Scotland.
Yeah,
it's the same in Scotland. But it has to travel further, so we get less.
Yeah. You know where I'm coming from on that one, Greg. So, so it's good on that thing. And to be fair, there's a lot of contradiction going on by some of the big six clubs, because Man United, your team's had investment from Saudi for a good few years on sponsorship deals and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Levy approached the same consortium, actually the same sovereign wealth fund, to buy them a few years ago, and they were quoted that they wanted $3 billion for them. And at the end of the day, it's all right. Spurs turn and say, "Oh well, yeah, buy us," and they're all happy for that.
Yeah.
But as soon as they said no, because what sort of money are you going to make on that? If you were to put $3 million for Spurs, what money are you actually going to make on that?
Yeah.
You're not. There's, you would take a long, long time because there's still a lot of work that we need to do on the pitch, sort of thing, for that as well.
You're that for a Man United or a Chelsea, then when they're a ready-made team, then you can. And where it's a team like Man United as well, where you've got that consumerism side of the thing of it as well. It's worldwide. It's everything else that comes with it. It's not like just buying Tottenham, who haven't historically won things anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Like Newcastle, there's a lot of things that were said about before Mike Ashley came over. I think we were one of the most historical FA Cup winners as a club in the. You know what I mean? So we've got a history. We've won the league. Yes, I think the last time we won the championship was in the 1920s, but and the FA Cup, and we've won a European trophy. Also, we've got a history compared to some of the clubs, and you look
than City and Chelsea.
Yeah,
much better
before they got took over.
That seems to be the narrative. Was like, oh, they're just picking up a little club, and it's like, well, they're not picking up a massive club that's fallen a long way.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that since obviously our entertainers' day in the 90s, where Chris will remember this. In the 90s, we were a fantastic team to watch. We were a lot of fans. Team. No, I didn't.
I was born in '98, so I'm not going to remember.
Yeah, I knew Greg wasn't going to remember.
I do remember. It was. I can remember the Newcastle 3, Liverpool 4 games, and all of them. It was,
Yeah, it was good to watch, and a lot of other clubs said Newcastle were like the second team. Do you know what I mean? It was, it was really, really entertaining. Like when how many teams do you see beat Man United 5-0? Do you know what I mean? And I mean that day we played them off the park. It's probably one of the best performances we've ever seen. Well, I've ever seen since in my 40-odd years of supporting the club. But then you go to the way the investment firm, the consort has done. They've just bought us for just over 300 million, which realistically is a snip in the long term of things. We would talk about this. Newcastle could build a fantastic training ground, make some repairs to the stadium, and do a little bit more if they can. Invest so much on the pitch, and that's they're going to see probably. If they start winning things as well and get into European football, they're probably going to see the value go from what is now. You'd be pushing on $1.5 billion to $2 billion in so long, and they've only put a little investment in, so that 80% becomes huge. Mm-hmm. And this is why Daniel Levy and a lot of the big six, because they are now scared that team that caused Man United a lot of problem in the 90s, we ended up being that sleeping giant again, and now this sleeping giant's going to come back. And bear in mind, we've still got to stay in the league this season first.
Yep.
From next season, we could take the league by storm going forward, and that's what they are scared of. There's only 4 places getting to the Champions League where all the money is, and 7 doesn't go into 4. You could argue that Arsenal and Spurs are probably dropping away from that. Leicester finished above them last year, so Leicester have got their number at the minute. West Ham got the number last year as well, so there's other teams which are starting to pick them off. And people like Arsenal and Spurs, they are really scared because you look at the debt that Spurs have got with that stadium. They've already missed payments on the stadium because of COVID and obviously not having fans to come in. They're in a really big financial dilemma, and that's one of the reasons why they can't have another player at the table who could take their slot and potential of getting into the Champions League, which is where they need to be.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they sort of saw this thing coming when the European Super League came around and they were sort of trying to get out, because obviously it was rumoured for a long time that this Newcastle takeover was going to happen. So that was my feeling when sort of the big six turned it down, is because they don't want another mouth to feed, really. And that's why they want to break away. Chris, from your perspective, do you think it's a good thing for the league? Obviously, you support a club that I think many would regard as well run. Your owners are likeable. You've got a lot of money, but you spend it wisely. Do you think this is a bad thing for clubs like yourself with this sort of investment that teams could pull away, or do you think it's only a good thing for the league?
I think it would be very two-faced of me to sit here and say it's a bad thing when, like I say, we've done it, if you like, because I say we're not mega rich, but we're rich compared to where we've been in the past. So it would be very two-faced of me to sit here and go, oh, this shouldn't be happening or whatever. You don't know, like you said, wherever anybody gets money from, you've got to sort of ask questions. Yeah. I've got to be honest with you, I was a Newcastle fan. I wouldn't give 2 hoots whether it was good or bad for
me neither. I still wouldn't be sober enough to do this show.
And we don't know yet. It's early days, but like I said earlier, from what we've seen of these people, they seem to be Leicester-style owners. That they're going to buy in. They're not going to buy just the club. They're going to buy into the area, into the town. You know, you saw how we reacted when we lost our chairman. You know, that is the amount of. I mean, there was a poll. We've got the most popular owners in the Premier League. Yeah. You know, 96% of people love what they do at the club. What the other 4% do, and God knows what they want, you know. But you know, we've got a fantastic stage. You know, if you want saunas at the training ground, come and stay at ours. It's like a 5-star hotel. So, and it would be, you know, I can't not wish Newcastle fans all the best and hope that it works out for them. And like I said earlier, go and kick the Big Six's arse. It's been really interesting to see how Sky, because I don't know how Newcastle are followed worldwide, but that's the thing with the Uniteds, the Liverpools. And when Leicester won the league back in 2016, you know, the quote was that the guy of one club, we don't know which one it was, said that's never going to happen again. You know, so, but whether it's good for the league,
I know who said that. I know who said that.
I'm saying nothing, just in case. But you know, is it good for the league? I heard a thing on Talk Sport the other day, and it's actually quite a good point that if I'm a well-established Italian footballer, plays for, you know, a top team over there, Milan, one of the Milans, I'm in the national team, and Chelsea come in for me. Oh, yep, the bright lights of London, you know. Or if there's Manchester come in, you're thinking like, oh yeah, you know, the Manchester scene, and it's Liverpool, that, you know, the Beatles and the history they've got. Mm-hmm. Newcastle maybe haven't quite got that. Yes, they've got the history. We know, those of us that are old enough to remember know you've got the history, but it was a hell of a long time ago, and so your pull is going to be slightly less. So I think you're going to have to probably pay that bit more to get the players in that you want. And you will have the effect of, I know this started, I know you said with Abramovich, but I think it actually started with Jack Walker at Blackburn. When he got promoted, he was going out buying players 5-6 million. You know, he started out, in my opinion, all this off. And I think that's kind of what Newcastle are going to have to do. And, you know, and clubs also, when you go knocking on somebody's door now, you know, saying we want that player, who are Newcastle? Well, hang on, add 15 million onto the cost, you know. So you're going to, unfortunately, bump the prices up. You're going to bump, because you're going to have to entice those players at the moment, is what I'm saying. You're going to have to entice them and give them a little bit extra to maybe come to Newcastle.
But this is one of the reasons why I think having people like Alan Shearer and Kevin Keegan as part of like ambassadors with the club, because you know, Alan Shearer's a worldwide name, full stop. So is Kevin Keegan. They were also part of that entertainers era. They should be able to sell anything, sell Newcastle to anybody. You know, people turn around and say, but you know, you're so far away from London. It's only a 45-minute flight from London. If you want to sell that to like an overseas player, 45 minutes flight's nothing. You could be there. You could finish training and be back down there for lunch or whatever if you wanted to.
So that is true. That is true. But as I think in the short term, I think it will affect the prices, and I think that will be bad for the other clubs outside the Sky's favourite six, as we keep saying. But I could say, if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be there saying, "So bloody what?" You know,
I wouldn't actually care, and I would be very excited going into certainly January. And if you do stay up, definitely over the next.
See, the one thing that I've seen as a Newcastle fan, which I've actually found really interesting, is how there's a lot of other clubs turn and says, "Oh, that's Mbappe gone. That's them." I don't think we'll be going for players like that. No. I'm honest with you.
I think you'll be smarter than that.
Yeah, you know, it's like when we were looking at like players who could take us to the next level in the summer. You know, there's rumours that Haaland's got a £65 million buyout clause this summer. Do I think we'll get Haaland? No, I don't. However, if that sort of fund, and obviously you talk about FFP, I'd like to see us throw a hat in the ring, though. I don't think he'd come, but I'd like to see us try and buy him. I don't think he would come to us, though, but because we've got that, and it just shows that intent sort of thing. My dream buy, and he's out of contract in the summer, if we were to really, really push the button, we stay up, is Chiesa.
Yeah, he's a great player. The little winger from what's his?
Is it Juve?
Juve. He's at Juve now, isn't
he?
Yeah. He's brilliant. He is really
I think if you get it right,
and if you're smart about it,
I think in 4 or 5 years' time, which is when I believe is the time you're going to be looking at moving, really going for it. You should, by that stage, if you've taken it steady and taken it right, and not signed players expensively on really long-term contracts, then you should be able to attract the big names. But I think it will affect. I'm sorry, Greg, but I think it will affect the Man Uniteds, the Liverpools, the Chelseas, the Spurs more than it will affect the Leicester.
If it makes my owners look for a billion pound consortium, that's all good for me.
But we can't compete with that now. No. So it's not going to make a huge difference to us. We'll still be fishing in the same pond. It's just that Newcastle have come and joined your pond, and they're going to be fishing out of your pond now. And for me, as a fan of a club like Leicester, it's get in there, Newcastle. No disrespect,
No, I like that.
Don't come. I mean, I know what it's like to be at a club that is everybody's second favourite when we were going for the league, unless you were a Tottenham fan, to everybody's hated club when we sacked Ranieri sort of 8 months later. And if you start coming after everybody's players, then we'll all hate you. But at the moment, we love you and good luck and go for it, mate.
Thank you.
Perfect, brilliant. Well, I think that's a really good way to wrap up the show. We obviously spoke all things Newcastle and a little bit Leicester and the general Premier League as well. I want to thank my guests, Chris and Richie. I see. Chris, you got anything? Have you got anything you want to plug quickly? Any shows or anything?
I've always got things to plug. Yeah, catch me on Twitter at Leicester TID for Till I Die. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. We've just gone over the 1,000. Leicester Till I Die TV.
Perfect. And Richie, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, well, I've got my 2 handles on the screen there, and my personal one, and also our channel Twitter handle as well, which is Loaded HQ1. You can also find us on our YouTube channel as well, which is Loaded HQ1 as well. We do like lots of specials all about Newcastle. Loaded Mags, our main show. However, we do stuff like called Away Days as well, where we always get people from the team we're playing that week. So we had a Palace fan on last night, and then we also do specials where we get some journalists on. We've had Sean Custis on. We've got a couple of nice, good ones lined up, which are all a bit secret. We can't reveal as yet. Right. But bear in mind, we're only a 6-month-old channel, but we've got a lot of subscribers already. We're going in the right direction with the fastest moving Newcastle podcast. So it's all looking good. So check us out. We've got plenty of content down there to go to.
Good luck,
perfect.
Mate.
Yeah, I'm sure many people will, especially with Newcastle being the talking point, and they will be the talking point probably over the next.
Yeah, well, we gained something like 600 subscribers from Takeover date, so
that's just clever business model, really. Like if you, that's just really good, perfect. And of course, guys, listen out to everything that coming out on the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. This, of course, was a pre-recorded show last night. Last night Reese did a show with a couple of different people discussing the upcoming Man United Liverpool game and all the fun of the fair and tears that's going to be come Sunday. But there's going to be lots of things coming out, not just Man United. I'll hopefully have my show back weekly, talking different Premier League, and I'd love to get these guys back on at some point throughout the season. Richie, if Newcastle are big in January, I'm sure we'll get you on. And Chris, when Tielemans inevitably moves to Manchester United, we'll make sure we get you on for that reaction.
No, you might cut Newcastle, Greg. You don't know.
hey, as long as you give us the 100 million, it happens.
I'll tell you what.
We'll give Tielemans. It did actually turn you down to come to Leicester originally.
He might not now though. But I tell you what, we'll give you 100 million, and you can keep Perez.
Oh no!
Look at that.
Sorry, no. Whoever you buy,
you get Perez as well. I like that.
A bog off offer.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for listening. Thanks again to my 2 guests, and we'll see you guys later.
Good night.